XAI's latest model, Grok 4.5, has just launched, and this is an interesting model because this is the first model from XAI which actually meaningfully beats frontier models, and it's going to be useful for your work. So let's take a look at in this video what this Grok 4.5 has to offer and how the landscape of frontier intelligence is changing. Alright, introducing Grok 4.5, which is SpaceX AI's smartest model built for coding, agentic tasks, and knowledge work. So they say that they are launching Grok 4.5 today, which was trained on datasets spanning knowledge in coding, science, engineering, and math. With both the intelligent and efficient reasoning, Grok 4.5 excels at real engineering tasks and exceeds comparable leading models at these tasks. And if you look at these couple of benchmarks over here, they haven't given a lot of benchmarks. In case of SWE Bench Pro and Terminal Bench 2.1, you can see that this is even better than GPT 5.5 and GLM, but I'll get to the fact, like OpenAI recently tweeted out that, this SWE Bench is actually not a good measure. Look at this. We audited SWE Bench Pro, one of the most widely used AI coding benchmarks, and found that it no longer reliably measures frontier coding capability. We find that the eval to be saturated at around a 70% noise ceiling and are retracting our previous recommendation that the research community use it as a leading coding eval. Now they have shared some information on why this is actually not a good way for measuring like coding evals. And OpenAI has officially, taken a step back from SWE Bench Pro, which is interesting because it comes after Grok 4.5 announcement where it beats a little bit by, a few percentage points, beats GPT 5.5, right? Fable is working on a different axis, different domain altogether. In case of Terminal Bench, you can see basically all of them are more or less same, right? Even GPT 5.5 is within I would say this is not a statistically significant difference as such. And even less with Grok 4.5 and just 0.1% difference. Then we have Deep SWE 1.1, which is the newer benchmark where Grok is a little far behind GPT 5.5 and even Fable. And in Deep SWE 1.0, it's sort of it's in the similar range as GPT 5.5 and Fable. So all in all, the benches which I feel are actually useful here are this one, the Deep SWE 1.1, which is their newer version, and the Terminal Bench 2.1 as well. But this sort of appears saturated in a way that, you are just, if Fable is getting 84.3%, which is like a next generation sort of model, then, GPT 5.5, which is a previous generation, and Grok 4.5, which is not matching Fable in performance, they are getting the same scores, right? Which makes it sort of a saturated bench, in my opinion. So Deep SWE probably provides the best picture. Now, they haven't shared more benchmarks, and I was also not able to find any sort of system card that they have in this, at least in this blog post. They did mention a little bit about how they trained across thousands of NVIDIA GB300 GPUs with training and stability techniques designed for large-scale runs and beyond raw token volume. We invested heavily in data filtering and curation, deduplication, quality scoring, and domain-focused selection so that the data mixture stays high coverage and high signal. And they mentioned Grok 4.5 is incredibly capable at coding from challenging Rust and C++ tasks to end-to-end app building from prompt to production. This is sort of sounds like a vibe coding tool builder. But below are some of the examples built by the model with one prompt. Grok 4.5 is highly proficient at creating well-designed end-to-end functional apps, even with minimal specification. Sort of reads more like what I would probably say in my blog post or launch blog post if I want to feed more AI about what Grok 4.5 is, because it's sort of repeated it twice over here in the last line and in the first line. And interestingly, they just have one example, right? Below are some examples built by the model, but the sum example is just one example. I don't see any other tabs, right? I don't see any other examples here. Yeah, weird. I would expect if they're saying some examples, it'll have more examples. But anyway, sure, this is, this is impressive, definitely, but nothing that frontier models can't do, right? Generally, we know these sort of applications and these sort of UI, 3D UIs with existing libraries is fairly simple for frontier models to do now. What is interesting, however, about Grok 4.5, which is a fact that I actually like as well, is that this is a fast model, which is around 80 tokens per second, which is, by the way, a very decent speed, right? Combined with twice greater token efficiency than the latest leading models at the same tasks, the model delivers intelligent results to you more quickly and at far lower cost. I've talked about this in multiple videos that I would prefer, in a lot of cases, a model which is slightly dumber but much faster, like a 5x or a 10x factor faster, over a model which is super intelligent but it's a lot slower, right? And the reason for that is I, as a developer, a lot of times I know what I'm working at, right? I know exactly the problem that needs to be solved. I would just give it some instructions. It has to follow it end to end properly. And in those scenarios, I need speed more than the intelligence. So Grok 4.5 seems like a good mix of both, right? They have a good amount of speed and it is also fairly intelligent based on the benchmarks that they have shown us. And it also uses less amount of tokens, right? Which is also an interesting thing that a lot of us should start considering now, because, if you look at models like GLM 5.2, these models are great. They match Opus 4.8 and even GPT 5.5 in some of the performance benchmarks, but they end up using a lot more tokens to reach those results compared to Opus or GPT, right? So the net thing results in, even though GLM is 10x cheaper than, let's say, GPT 5.5, but at the end of the day, it cost you probably just 2x cheaper, or 1.5 times cheaper, at an expense of using much more tokens and much more slower. They have also written Excels at office work as a dedicated section, which was initially a little bit surprising to me, where they mentioned Grok 4.5 is now the default model in Grok Build. In addition to its coding proficiency, Grok Build is capable of building complex Excel models that involve research from the web, multi-sheet formula use, and even leaves stickies or notes behind for future reference. So this sort of reads so much like that, they just wanted to tell that, hey guys, we bought a lot of RL environments, or at least like one Excel environment and a lot of tasks inside them. And we just post-trained it a lot on Excel, right? So we want you to know that it actually excels at office work. And same for PowerPoint and Word, right? So they are telling you that we have done a little bit of work in the post-training for outside coding space as well, which is, I would say, probably, I don't know, like if this is the biggest or at number 2, number 3, but definitely like a lot of people actually use these tools like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, everyone basically, I would say. Coming to the pricing, this is actually a cheaper model because it's at $2 per million input tokens and 6 per output tokens, right? Opus is $5 per million and 25 per output, as far as I remember. So it's definitely like much cheaper than Opus. The model also achieves roughly 2x the token efficiency of comparable leading models, solving tasks in under half the number of steps, which again results in much lower cost because you end up using less amount of tokens, which is interesting. Now it is available over API and in Grok Build. And it's also available free of cost, by the way. So they mention it over here that we have a free Grok 4.5 usage. Now I do have a Grok subscription, so I was playing around with this for some time. And I want to share some of my learnings that I have got so far. So first of all, I do feel that this model, in my experience, is slightly less good at instruction following than Opus. Now, I don't even know if this would be instruction following, but I'll give you an example of why I say this. So a lot of times, if I go back to the chat, you will see that my latest message is commit and push, right? If I scroll up, you're going to see that I also added a commit and push before that as well. So you'll keep on seeing that I'm regularly telling it to commit and push. What I have seen generally with GPT 5.5 and even Opus 4.8 is that they would look at this probably once or twice and then they would just understand that, hey, this guy actually just wants me to make the change and commit and push, and it'll just take it up from there. So every time, I'm just asking it to steer something, it would commit and push, right? Without me asking. Grok is not doing that. Now, this might be a good thing. This might be a post-RL sort of post-training RL inside it from a safety point of view that you should probably let the user decide what to do. But I felt instruction following does not sound like a good thing because it's not really, I'm not explicitly telling it and it's not doing that. Intuition following, I don't know if that is a word, but yeah, I would say something like this in the first, at least in the first few days of using this. Second is that it's obviously good at instruction following. It would be funny if I would write both the things at the same time. So yeah, this is actually intuition following. It's good at instruction following in the sense that if you just point it at specific thing to do, that okay, go ahead and maybe do a migration of all the API endpoints from having this structure to that structure, it would be able to do that. I would say not at the Opus 4.8 level, but sort of like, something like Opus 4.6 ish or even 4.7, I would say. Like 4.8, I don't know if this is the harness at play. Like, I'm not a huge fan of this harness that I'm seeing right now. I've not used this, I'm not comfortable with this, but this could be a harness sort of thing as well. And if you try Grok 4.5 in a different harness, you might end up with different results. But I do feel like that it's not exactly at the level of comfort that I usually get with Claude Code and Opus. But it's definitely value for money, right? Because this is a cheaper model and it's also an efficient model token wise. So it takes less amount of tokens to solve a problem. But this is not going to solve your hardest problems. Not going to solve your hardest problems. For example, a very recent example of what I gave it. Now you see this bug that is there with the black thing, right? So it's surrounding the globe. Now I've been trying to ask Grok to fix this and it has been trying to do that, but at least for a couple of times it has failed, right? So earlier there was a white strip and now that there is a black strip instead of white. So again, like I don't think that this is a huge bug and I'm fairly confident that Fable would one-shot it right. You know what, in fact, we can just try it out. Let's say I just copy this message that I gave Grok, right? And I'm not gonna even change the image path because I know like Fable would be able to pick this up from the image path itself. Now, before we move forward, I want to quickly introduce you to today's sponsor, which is Wavemaker. You can use Wavemaker to build enterprise as well as consumer applications at scale without compromising quality, but at the same time retaining the benefits of AI-based speed of development as well as human-based component systems and making sure that your humans are in the loop. Hundreds of enterprises uses Wavemaker today to build full-stack mobile applications as well as web applications, which includes front-end, back-end, database, everything that you can possibly imagine. Let me show you how to do that. Let me start a blank Wavemaker application. Let's build it for web. And let's say this is Task Planner. Now, once you're inside Wavemaker canvas panel, you can switch to the AI mode, which will help you build application directly using AI. So I just got a screenshot generated of a typical task application, how it should look like. And what I can do is I can just feed the screenshot to Wavemaker and the AI would generate the application. Now, the thing to note here is that the application that I've given Wavemaker AI to generate, it is a screenshot, but this could have been a Figma file as well. But the important bit is that Wavemaker is aware of your existing systems and design practices, and it can generate the application which conform to those practices. As you can see, as the AI has started to build the application, you're going to see that it also focuses a lot on backend and database systems. So it's not just a front-end application, it's a full stack solution that you can deploy once it is done. All right, so within a few minutes, you're going to see that it completes the work and the components and design systems look and feel a lot more like what you would already have established in your company. So it does not deviate away a lot from the design. Now, from within the canvas itself, you can edit a bunch of things, bunch of parts visually if you want as a human. So this also acts like a design mode where you can switch around and see the tokens and colors and systems that the AI has decided to use, right? For example, look at this. You will see visually in one go what sort of fonts, colors, sizes, typography your whole system is using. This, of course, directly links with the database of your choice as well. So you can bring in your existing production database, start using it with backend services, and create a full stack web or mobile application which can run at scale for consumers or enterprises directly from a single place. And if needed, of course, you can jump into code and edit it from here. Also download the source code or deploy it directly if you're ready to go. Wavemaker works with some of the biggest companies in the world, including names like AT&T, Nokia, and others. So you're definitely in good hands. Once again, thanks to Wavemaker for sponsoring this part of the video. Do check them out. All the links are in the description. And now back to the video. And by the time Fable is working on it, look at this cost per task for Grok 4.5 high, GPT 5.5 extra high, Opus, and Fable, right? So Grok is clearly a lot more better in terms of cost per task. And if you look at the intelligence sort of layer as well as, sort of like a cost structure here, Fable definitely is much more higher in the intelligence layer, but a lot more costlier as well. Whereas Grok is a much lower in terms of cost. Remember that this is a logarithmic scale, right? But it's also like not as intelligent as, for example, Fable. Close enough to GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.8, but Fable is still a little out of reach. And even in intelligence versus cost to run, you see that we are still yet to see these frontier models be inside this quadrant where we need a lot more intelligence like Fable style, but a lot less in cost, right? So we are at about $6,000 over here. but we need it somewhere under $2,000 or even like $1,000, which would be a sweet spot. If you put GLM 5.2 in this, you're going to see that the cost is much less, but so is the intelligence as well for, the same graph that we have. And of course, Fable is doing this as a long horizon task. I don't know like how much time it will take. It has already taken more than 5 minutes now and over 14,000 tokens. I mean, I've already spent like a couple of dollars directly fixing a bug, which is obviously not, feasible to do. Note that I'm running this over API, not on subscription right now. But let's hope that Fable ends up fixing this so my $3-4 are at least worth something. I gave it a few more workloads. Initially, I thought like it's much more like Opus 4.8, but sometimes it makes mistakes and it, just sort of like reduces or gets a little comfortable when doing tasks. So that's why I degraded it to like not exactly Opus 4.8, but rather somewhere between 4.6, 7, and 8. Like sometimes it's 4.8, sometimes it's 4.7-ish. Yeah, I really think I should not have given Fable this task. It's already over 11 minutes, 12 minutes rather, and it's still going on. But yeah, I'll probably let you know the results of this in the pinned comment. So do check it out if you want to see whether Fable ended up solving this or not. And how much did it actually cost finally. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna see you in the next video very soon. If you're still watching, make sure you leave a comment, "I watched till the end" below to tell me that you were still here, and let me know what do you think about the video.